We have some really important injury news to look at on today's episode. But before we do, make sure to join our country here at Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports, where we are growing like crazy. We are one of the largest Broncos communities out there, and everything is completely free. So if you are looking for a free Broncos YouTube channel, hit that sub button down below. What's going on, Broncos country? Welcome on into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here, getting you guys ready for the weekend by previewing this matchup while also looking at some really important injury news for both teams going into Sunday. Let's start with the Broncos injury report, as Pat Surtain was a full participant at practice as he works his way back from a concussion. He missed Week 7 in New Orleans. As a result, only the second time he has missed a game in his career. So definitely trending towards PS2 being available this Sunday and only missing 1 week. A handful of guys that were limited overall, I'm not very concerned about. McGlinchey played on Thursday against the Saints. Palchevsky is no longer all that much needed with McGlinchey back anyway, and I expect PJ Locke to be available on Sunday. Malcolm Roach missed Wednesday's practice with an illness. He was back on Thursday, so encouraging to see one of their key units in the middle of the defensive line back. So overall, the Broncos are pretty healthy. I would say actually more healthy than the average team is at this stage of the season. Obviously, Pat Surtain is a huge part of what Denver does on defense. They didn't necessarily need him on Thursday, mostly because the Saints were extremely banged up down their top 2 wide receivers and their starting quarterback. So if there was a game to miss, it would probably be that game. But it's still the NFL. You don't want to play with your food. You want to get all of your guys back because anyone on any given Sunday can win. But as for the Carolina Panthers, they are going to be trotting out Bryce Young this upcoming Sunday. Andy Dalton suffered a thumb injury while in a car accident with his family. Thankfully, it sounds like no one is really injured in it, although I would like to know where Bryce Young was when that car accident took place. But anywho, Young will be back in the starting lineup for Carolina, along with, well, not too many other starters. I mean, the Panthers injury report is so long we can't even fit it all on screen, but here are some of the more notable names. You got a handful of guys that did not practice on Wednesday. Dane Jackson. Deontay Johnson's resting with a rib injury. I also wonder if they are resting him because they are close to getting a trade done and they don't want him getting injured before that trade can go through. Jonathan Brooks, their second-round pick running back from Texas, is looking to maybe make his debut this upcoming Sunday as he comes off the PUP list. And then a familiar face, Josey Jewell, who is limited with a hamstring injury, is trending towards playing on Sunday. I'm sure he's extra motivated to get back on the field and play against his former team back at Mile High. But I have seen a lot of people talk about whether or not this upcoming matchup is a trap game for the Broncos. Listen, boys and girls, it is the NFL. There are 53 professionals on both sides of the football, and every single game is a very tough test, even though we like to look at it as, oh, this is an absolute gimme. No, there are 53 guys on the other side who are very, very motivated for their next contract, for playing time. So is it a trap game? I don't think it is a trap game because I do think the Broncos are so far superior over the Panthers that they should be able to handle Carolina with ease. Although there's definitely plenty of motivation for Bryce Young to go out there and make a statement so he can hold on to his starting gig after getting it back under bizarre circumstances. So is it a trap game? I'm going to say no. I've seen bigger trap game, potential out there before, but I definitely don't want anyone thinking the Broncos can just fall asleep at the wheel in Week 8. So my concern level is mild. This also just gives me an opportunity to say I never know the difference between mild and medium at B-dubs. I never remember which one's hotter, which one's spicier. But whichever one is less hotter between mild and medium, that's where I am. And I think it's mild, but I always forget. So I'm not overly concerned about this screaming trap game. The Panthers are such a bad team. The Broncos at home, they are rolling. They are clicking as of late. Let's get win number 5. So predict the score for me. We're going to look at some keys to victory, and then I'll give you my score prediction at the end of the video. But let me know your score prediction right now, Denver versus Carolina. So let's take a closer look at these two teams. The Broncos offense comes in averaging a little over 20 points per game, somewhere in the middle of the pack. Meanwhile, Carolina's defense with Ejiro Evero, right? He's still the DC there, dead last in almost everything. It's been a really tough season for the Panthers. I mean, on top of just not having a lot of draft capital to work with following the trade up for Bryce Young, they lost their number one defender, Derek. I'm blanking on his last name. Derek Brown, sorry. And then Brian Burns got traded, but there's a lot of guys. So Carolina's missing a lot of key pieces. Meanwhile, the Panthers offense, I mean, with Bryce Young, it's a totally different unit, but Bryce Young or Andy Dalton, doesn't matter which one is going to go out there. They still have to go up against a top 5 Broncos defense that is third in points per game, third in yards. I mean, first in the red zone, nearly top 10 in takeaways. It doesn't matter who is lining up under center for the opponent. It's going to be a tough and long day going up against this Vance Joseph defense. Which brings me to my first key to victory, which is trenches domination. The Broncos have been one of the best teams at the line of scrimmage on offense and defense. I mean, let's start with the Broncos offensive line so far this season, which is tied for first in sacks allowed. This is music to Sean Payton's ears. He could not stand the sacks that Russell Wilson was taking last year. And they don't make too many tweaks up front of the offensive line. I mean, they make one change when it comes to a starter. Cushenberry out, Wattenberg in. Outside of that, the only other change is Bo Nix, and look at the dramatic drop-off in a good way for sacks allowed. So give credit to the Hogs up front protecting their quarterback, but also on the defensive line. Denver leads the AFC right now in sacks with 28. They have 4 more than the Vikings, who love to blitz the quarterback more than anyone else in the National Football League. But credit to the Giants, by the way, for not being a very good team. Dexter Lawrence is nearly single-handedly carrying this team to even just a 2-win record so far. So, when it comes to the trenches, I believe this is where a turnaround starts, right? This was a Broncos team that for coming up on a decade really had no identity on offense or defense. I mean, a couple of good defensive years with Vance Joseph. At quarterback, it was a turnstile, and the offense never really got much of a rhythm for all those years post-Peyton Manning. But Sean Payton has quickly established that, hey, to get back on track, it's going to have to happen on the offensive line and on the defensive line. And they have made moves that reflect that, right? Contract extension to Quinn Miners, signing Mike McGlinchey, signing Ben Powers, and then going out on defense, bringing in Malcolm Roach. So, a couple of moves on both sides of the football are paying off big time for the Broncos right now. I've got 2 more keys to victory to look at in just a moment, so make sure you stick around. But a quick shout out to our sponsor today, PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 10 million active members. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. I'm talking turning $10 into $1,000. So this is what I am rolling with for the upcoming weekend. I'm taking the more on the Vikings kicker for Thursday Night Football. Kickers are just kind of weird and fun to root for, so why not? Also like the more for Cooper Kupp in his first game back, first or second game back. And then I like the more for Joe Mixon at 76.5 rushing yards. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. PrizePicks, run your game. Key to victory number 2, Bo Nix's footwork. How many times have we heard this be mentioned over the last 10 days or so, stemming from that Thursday Night Football win in New Orleans? Even Sean Payton was asked about it because, I mean, you go back to that Thursday night game and there was a lot of meat left on the bone for this Broncos offense, and a lot of it came back to just sloppy footwork from Nix, which, listen, I'm not going to be overly critical of. He is a rookie. I expect there to be growing pains and learning moments, and if the Broncos can find a way to win games while the rookie is still learning, well, that's just the best of both worlds. But hopefully we can get more passes like this one where Nix is just on platform, his footwork is down, and this is a simple throw and catch for a solid gain. So clearly Bo Nix's footwork has been a major talking point because even Sean Payton was asked about Bo Nix's footwork, and he said he doesn't want to add too many things to that, which it's moments like this where you can kind of go, yeah, there's a reason why I'm a YouTuber and he's an NFL head coach because these guys are pretty smart and pretty good at what they do. I really like this quote, which Mike Klisch shared from Peyton. You've got to be careful. You're not overcoaching it. There are things he does well out of pocket or climbing up. The times when he climbs up the pocket or is moving in the pocket, we're pretty smart about how much we say or how much we try to fix it. So my subtle reaction to this is the Broncos coaching staff has been aware of Bo Nix's footwork. I mean, there's been a lot of eyeballs on him ever since he stepped foot on campus, essentially. All I'm looking for is improvements, and I'm sure that's something the Broncos coaching staff has already tried to get through to him, and it's probably not coming along as quickly as they would like. But when it comes to rookie quarterbacks, I'm a much more patient, I wouldn't call myself like an analyst, but, just fan will call for right now and say, I'm not one to panic very quickly when it comes to rookie QBs. I probably give them a longer leash than your average pundit does. So as long as I see improvement from Nix week to week, I'm going to be happy. Now, what is your confidence level in Bo, though? Scale of 1 to 10. I'm curious also to know, are you more or less confident in Nix right now as we approach the halfway mark of the season than you were back in September before he took the field for the first time? I'm probably about the same spot I am right now. If someone told me from the future, hey, here are Nix's stats after the first 8 weeks of the season, I'd probably go, yeah, it looks about right. Probably what I was about expecting. So my confidence level for Bo Nix right now, I'll put it at a solid 6.5. Third and final key to victory, receivers making plays. Now, receivers are not completely to blame for the offensive air game not being very explosive, but I would like to see these guys step up and make a couple of more plays here. I mean, Courtland Sutton, Josh Reynolds, Lil'Jordan Humphrey, pretty much leading the aerial assault. And what I want you guys to pay extra close attention to is not just their yards, but the yards after the catch. Look at the drop-off. Take Courtland Sutton, for example. I mean, he's never been a yak monster, but we need a little bit more than 41 yards after the catch. Meanwhile, compare that to Lil'Jordan Humphrey, who over half of his yards come after the catch. But it's not just about making plays when you get the football in your hand. I mean, speaking of Humphrey, how about this play from Thursday night? I mean, this is just a ball that has to be caught. It's a well-thrown football. It's tight coverage. It's not a gimme. It's not a layup. But Humphrey at, 6'4", against Alontae Taylor, 5'11". I mean, that is just a play that 84 needs to make. The ball goes through his hands and just ricochets off of his chest protector and onto the turf. So that is just a play that I would like to see these receivers make. Help out your rookie QB who could use some help. I mean, sure, it's not only on the receivers. They can only catch balls that are thrown to them somewhat on target. So there is plenty of blame that can go around when it comes to the Broncos receivers not putting up monster numbers. But when the ball is thrown their way, I need them to catch it. And when they do catch it, can we make a man miss or two and make some good big chunk plays after the catch? Before we sign off, I just want to remind everyone, we will have a watch party this Sunday for Broncos Panthers, so make sure to join us. It's always a blast. If you're looking for something to do while watching the game, throw us on your phone or your tablet. Keep the game on TV if you're in the local area, and that way you can kind of be a part of a fun Broncos community while watching the game. All right, my score prediction, by the way, for this one, I told you guys earlier I'd give it to you at the end of the video. I'm going to say Denver 24-13. I'm not quite sure if the Broncos can pull off back-to-back blowout wins. I would like to see, that's kind of the next step for them. You know what I mean? They took care of business down in Tampa. Then they go up to the Jets, and, well, they win. That's great. Don't get me wrong. 1-point victory. We've yet to see them really start to string together some really big, offensive performances. So hopefully that can happen this week. But for now, I'll say 24-13.